Hi there, Carolyn Peeler with you today in Ellen Hudson's classroom. And today I'm sharing this sweet little holiday card that combines Honeybee stamps and the brand new Homespun Holiday by Brandy Kincaid Essentials by Ellen stamp set. We're going to be using the image on the top left there, which is the little bell jar. And we're going to stamp onto vellum. Now before you emboss, if you have one of those little magic embossing bags, it's a great idea to rub that on the surface of the material that you're embossing, just so that no little stray particles get stuck to it. I stamped there with the Versamark ink, and I love that because it's super sticky, perfect for embossing. Then I sprinkled my white embossing powder onto it, and now I'm setting my powder aside so it doesn't melt, and I'm going to go ahead and heat with a heat tool. This one is currently out of stock, however there is another one that I've linked in the comments below. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to color that embossed image. To do that, you're going to flip the vellum upside down so that you're going to actually color on the wrong side of the vellum. So not coloring over top of the embossing, coloring on the back side. Now the order that you color in is totally up to you. You don't have to do it the same order that I did. However, I'm using the distress markers for this particular application. Normally I do this with the Copic markers. However, I did have a lot of people asking me if this particular technique is something that can be done with other markers. It absolutely can. I still actually sort of prefer the effect that I get using my Copic markers. However, this application works just fine. As you'll see with the finished card, it looks fabulous. So I'm using distress markers on this one in mowed lawn, pulled paint, spun sugar, fossilized amber, weathered wood, and tumbled glass. And once again, all of those colors will be linked in the classroom directly into the items in the Ellen Hudson store. So you're going to color it, and once you're done with coloring, you're going to take one of the Ranger adhesive sheets. And you can see here, I've just layered my stamped image on top of it so that I know approximately how much I need to cut or to use from this adhesive sheet. So I've cut off a sticky portion that's just slightly bigger than my image, and now I'm going to stick it once again onto the back side of the vellum. So once again, that's to the back side of the vellum. Then I peel the second layer of protection off, and sometimes that's easier said than done, as you can see here. But once you've peeled the adhesive backing off to that, now you're going to slap that sucker down onto some white cardstock. After you've done that, you're going to use the coordinating homespun holiday die, line that up in place, and then I'm using a little piece of masking tape. You can use some washi tape if you want as well. I just like holding my die in place so that it doesn't shift when I put it into my die cutting machine. The next step that we're going to do is line up our stamps. I love doing this with lined paper. So this is the Honeybee Merry and Joyful set, which is one of the brand new releases that they've done for this holiday season. And by laying those words out onto lined paper, you can easily get them in position, which is quite nice. Now I'm stamping with the Hero Arts Ombre ink pad using the colors Pool to Navy, and I'm simply stamping onto white cardstock. And as you can see, you get this beautiful ombre effect. You're going to see later that I end up sort of changing what I do with this, but for now we're stamping it just like this. Now this stamp set is really cool because it has the MERR, and then it has a whole bunch of different endings. So you can say merriest or merry, as you wish. I've done the merry with the Y, so that was that second stamp that you saw. And now I'm creating my grid. All of the pattern paper that's used for today's stamp, unless it's vintage, is from the C'est La Vie 6x6 paper pad. And scratch that, there actually is one other paper pad that we're using. We're also using the My Favorite Things Thick and Thin Stripes. So that's the blue and white stripe that's down the left-hand side of the card. But the other two patterns are both from the C'est La Vie pad. Additionally, I've taken some vintage music paper that you can see here. I really love vintage, as you've probably noticed over the past several months that I've been posting here in the classroom. And so I really love incorporating some vintage paper onto the cards or projects that I make because I feel that that gives it that vintage look. You're using authentic. This is not expensive. Just check out your local thrift shop and look for some, old hymn books or old song books. Works great. So I've created my little grid, but I'm noticing that there needs to be something to fill in that right side. It's still too empty. So I found another little sliver of pattern paper, and I've cut that to the same height as the brick paper that's in the background, and I'm just going to layer that over top. You can also see that I have this green cardstock and a little stripe of pink cardstock. Now the green cardstock is going to be a matte so that it just sort of grounds everything from the card and creates a nice border. And the pink is going to be between my sheet paper and the brick paper. Now I'm using a liquid adhesive with this because when I glued on my music paper, I knew that I was probably going to put a strip of some sort of contrasting cardstock above it. So my adhesive is towards the bottom of my sheet paper so that I can slide my cardstock into place, this little strip. So you can see there I'm tucking it behind, and by using the liquid adhesive it allows you to tuck and then sort of just push it down into place. Now I've sort of have everything lined up the way I like it, but I'm realizing that there's an empty space once again on the upper right hand side, and I needed something to fill that. So from the Essentials by Ellen, the Homespun Holiday Set, there's a cute little star in it. And I'm simply going to stamp that star in the top right corner so that it's not just an empty space in the card that needs to be filled. You can also see that I've layered some vintage buttons onto the pattern paper on the right side of my grid. Those aren't sewed in yet, but I'm going to sew them. And I'm also going to see, I just showed you that I have pop dots under the little jar, and I did that so that it adds some dimension. Now for those buttons, as you can see here, I've sewn those by hand, and I did that simply because I like the way that it looks when there's thread through the buttons. If you're not into doing that extra work, absolutely don't do that. Just use a glue dot, stick that sucker down, and you're good to go. As you can see on the back side here, I've also sewed with my sewing machine a straight line through the pink and a zigzag line through the blue and white stripe. And then I'm gluing that green onto a white card, a fully functioning card. And once again, I'm leaving a little border so that I have that matte effect, so that my card now has a white and green matte before you get to the juicy parts of the card itself. To finish off, I'm using the Wink of Stella in clear, this pen, and it's just going to give this beautiful iridescence to the letters, and I'm simply using it for the word Mary. I'm not using it for the other words. I just really wanted to have a little bit of holiday sparkle. You could also, if you wanted, use some stickles by Ranger. That would also look nice, and actually the stickles would also give a little bit of a dimensional effect as well. It just depends which supplies you have easily on hand and what look you're after. This is a very flat look, one-dimensional as opposed to the other. Now you can see here I did a before and after because I ended up deciding that I did not like the light color of the Have Yourself, and so I've re-stamped it onto some vintage paper and glued it over top. So thank you so much for joining me today. There's your finished card. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks so much.